Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra 1, Unit 4.1 through 4.4 review. Remember to show all your work. Now at the top I wrote myself a couple of reminders for when we're graphing inequalities, when we use an open circle and when we use a closed circle. So let's, go ahead and get started. So graph x is greater than or equal to -3. So at -3, are we open or closed? We are closed. And it's greater than, so we want to shade everything to the right. Now, looking at number 2. Number 2 is not written in order, okay? We always want to have the x first. The inequality is pointing at the x, so I'm going to make sure it stays pointing to the x. And so I'm closed at -2, and we shade everything to the right. All right, number 3. At -2, we are closed, and at 3, we are closed, and with this type we want to shade the middle. All right, number 4. At -5 we're open, at 0 we're closed, and once again we shade in the middle. And number 5, x is less than or equal to -2. So at -2 we're closed, it's less than, so we shade to the left. Or x is greater than 3. We're open at 3, and we shade everything to the right. Okay? All right. For the next part, we need to write the inequality ourselves. So if you want to pause the video and try this yourself first, feel free to do that. Okay, but for each one of these, when we're writing the inequality, we're going to start with x. It's greater than, it's closed, and that's at 2. All right, number 7, we're using the numbers -3, x, and 4. Anytime we're doing this type of inequality, they're always pointing to the left. Okay? At -3 we're open, so we can keep it, and then at 4 we're closed, so we just have to make sure we draw the line underneath it. Okay, and number 8, we have x less than or equal to our first number, which is -4, or x is greater than 1. Okay. Now the next one say that we need to solve and graph. So let's get started. First thing we need to do is subtract the 3 to both sides. Then we have -x is less than 7. You're not done because we have to divide by a -1. We get x, we get -7. And anytime you divide by a negative, we have to flip the sign. So x is greater than or equal to -7. So there's -7, -6, -5, -8, -9. Open at -7, and we want everything greater, so I'm shading to the right. All right, number 10. We have to subtract the 8 to both sides because we're solving for that x right there. We get -14 is greater than 2x. To get the x by itself, we have to divide both sides by 2. And we get -7 is greater than x. And the last thing we need to do is rewrite that because we want the x first. It's pointing at the x, the inequality is, so I'm going to make sure it stays pointing at the x. -6, -5, and then -8, -9. Once again, we're open at -7, and we want everything less than, so we're shading to the left. All right, number 11. To get the x by itself, you need to multiply by the reciprocal. Those cancel. We're left with x. 3 times -2/3 is -2. And we just multiplied by a negative, so we have to flip the sign. So x is greater than -2. And then graphing it, we got -2, -1, 0, -3, -4. At -2, we're open, and we shade everything to the right. All right, number 12. The first thing we want to do with 12 is distribute, okay? So half of 6 is 3, and it's going to be a -3. A negative times a negative is a positive. Okay? Now we just start solving for x, so we subtract 2 to both sides. We get -3x is less than or equal to 21. And then to get the x by itself, we divide by a -3. 21 divided by 3, -3 is -7. We just divided by a negative, so we flip the sign. X is greater than or equal to -7. So we got -7, -6, -5, -8, and -9. We are closed at -7, and we want to shade everything to the right because it is greater. All right, number 13. We have variables on both sides, so we want to move the smaller one. And then we get -6 less than or equal to 8w plus 2. So we're going to subtract both sides by -2, and we get -8 is less than or equal to 8w. To get the w all by itself, we need to divide by 8, and we get -1 is less than or equal to w. And the only thing that's wrong with that is the variable is not first. So we have to rewrite it. The inequality is pointing at the -1, so I'm going to make sure it stays pointed at the -1. -1's in the middle, we go 2 numbers up and 2 numbers below. We are closed at -1, and we shade everything to the right. All right, number 14. First thing we need to do is to distribute. The left side stays the same. We get 3x minus 6. Variables are on both sides, so I'm going to add the 2x to the other side. And we get 4 is greater than 5x minus 6. To get the x all by itself, we have to add 6 to both sides. We get 10 is greater than 5x. Divide both sides by 5. We get 2 is greater than x. And then once again, the only thing that's wrong with that is the variable is not first, so we have to rewrite it. The inequality is pointing at the x, so we get x is less than 2. Okay? So graphing that, 2, 3, 4, 1, 0. We are open to 2, and we're less than, so we're going to shade everything to the left. All right, just a couple more. Now, remember with these that we draw the lines down the middle on both sides. And now when we solve for x, we want to add 8 to all sides. So we get negative 12 is less than or equal to 12x, which is less than 24. Okay, we're going to divide all 3 by 12. And we get negative 1 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 2. Okay, so there's all of our numbers right there. At negative 1, we are closed. At 2, we are open. And we shade the middle. Okay, number 16. Once again, I'm going to draw my lines down the middle and start solving for x. So I'm going to add 2 to all sides. And we get negative 12 is less than negative 3x, which is less than or equal to negative 3. To get the x by itself, I'm going to divide all 3 by negative 3. I'm dividing by a negative, so I have to flip my signs. And we get 4, x, and 1. Okay? Now, we need to rewrite it so it's in order from least to greatest. At 1, we're closed, and at 4, we're open. Okay? So I got 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll go one more. Okay? At 1, we are closed. At 4, we're open. And we shade in the middle. All right, 17, last one. To get the x by itself, we have to divide by negative 5. Since this is an OR, we're going to do each one of these individually. We get x. Negative 20 divided by negative 5 is 4. We divided by negative, so we have to flip the sign. Okay? Now on the right side, we have to subtract 2 to both sides. And we get negative x is greater than or equal to 1. And then get the x all by itself, we have to divide by a negative 1. We divided by a negative, so we have to flip the sign. Okay? Now, the only thing that's wrong with this is we have to write it in order, so I'm putting my lowest number first, or x is greater than or equal to 4. Okay, let's shade that. Got negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and there's 4. At negative 1, we're closed, and we shade everything to the left. At 4, we are closed, and I'm going to shade everything to the right. Okay? All right, guys, well, that's it for Algebra 1, Unit 4.1 through 4.4 review. Good luck on your quiz, and thanks for watching.